Good morning and happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to Market of the Moment. We are excited for our regular panel of guests. I guess our semi-regular, because we've got joining us this week while Amber is on the beach. Annette is holding down the fort over at Guild Mortgage. And so every time Annette is on, she is just lowering interest rates. So we're going to be really challenging her to see if we're going to be able to do that again. Good morning, Annette. Almost free money hunt. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to the mortgage update a little bit later. And then we also have Miss Mindy Jones, the owner of the Amy Jones Group. And Mindy has been also the bearer of good news of late. We've been seeing a little inventory bump over these last several weeks, and we're excited to see how the holiday weekend and if there's any impact that we're having on inventory right now as well. So I'm sure you have good news, Mindy.
We got some interesting updates to share. There's definitely been some changes across the valley, so it'll be fun to kind of talk about some of that today.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. And my partner in crime is Sharon Terhune, the Vice President of Sales for Fidelity National Title. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday and happy June. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, right? We're almost halfway through the last month of the first half of the year. Amazing. So,
Crazy.
Yeah. So, and our bravest guest ever, Mr. Dave Zajdzinski, who I don't know if you guys all remember, but back in November, we had Dave on. It was his first time on Market of the Moment, and we were talking goal setting. And when we went through, Dave had done his planning for 2021, and we had talked about what his goals were going to be. And Dave volunteered to have all of you as accountability partners, and that he was going to come on quarterly with us and share the progress towards his goals. And so we are really excited to hear from Dave. Dave, thank you so much for joining us again today.
It is my pleasure. I appreciate you guys letting me do this. It's fun.
Well, I tell you what, it's really cool, and we're really excited to hear about them. So I am going to refresh our audience on what the goals were. And it's so funny because right before we went live, I was going over these with Dave, and I'm like, well, for this month, you plan on 140 closings, and he said, I would like that.
I would take that.
But it's actually for the year. So for 2021, the goal was to do 140 closings, and that was also broken down to 35 closings per agent on your team. So each person on your team doing 35 transactions, and then a overall volume of $44.3 million in sales. And that's a great number, Dave, and we're excited to hear how you are going towards that. Also, one of your plans for this year was to leverage showing agents, and those showing agents would be hosting 48 open houses as well. And so those are the goals that we had set last November. How's it looking, Dave? How are we doing?
We're looking pretty good. So we've got, there's so many things to cover there. So we can just take them one at a time. Last time I couldn't share my screen. I couldn't figure it out, but I think we can do it this time. So let me share, and we can really just kind of look at the numbers. So let me know if this pops up.
There it comes.
Oh, we did it. Nice. Okay.
Really, technology wizards over here.
Woo! Right. All right. So this is Sisu. This is what we use to track everything, and there's a lot that we can track, and I love it because we're having really good conversations around what's working, what's not working once we track it. So I would say we're losing, but we're also on pace at the same time, right? So we have our lead measures and our lag measures. We should have closed 49 homes by now for 18.7 million. We're at 47 and 16, but what's in escrow and close is actually beating where it should be. So we've got 27 for 26.2 million. So we haven't closed as much as we wanted to, but we're outpacing to get there by the end of the year, right? So hard to measure that, right? I would prefer that we were on track now and not having as much in the pipeline. And the last time we talked about it, what was doing it for us is these new homes. Like we're having such difficulty getting homes accepted, right? So we have pushed so much into the new home builders that, you know, we've got 29 pending for 12 million. And we've got closings out in December, October, November. So my fear is we're going to run out of runway to get there if we can't get our closings in. So, we're good. Like these are stretch goals for us. So I'm happy where we're at. The nice thing is we know what we need to do, right? And so, I'm a basketball fan, and I just did this with somebody yesterday. Like, how many here remember Reggie Miller in '95 scoring 8 points in 9 seconds? Does anybody remember that? Like, I'm a big basketball fan, but I use this. Right? What's that?
It was a playoff game, wasn't it?
Yeah. New York, so
with the sports trivia knowledge.
Yeah, go share.
I actually really was into basketball during those years because that was also when the Suns were really playing good too. Yeah. So yeah.
And since my hometown, the Bulls were dominating, I remember all of it because I was watching the Bulls, right, Don?
That's right, Chicago guys.
Yeah. So here's a great exercise anybody can do, like when they're leading people, is show them that clip. Show them, look at Reggie Miller, 8 points in 9 seconds. And then you say, hey, let's round up to 10 seconds. How many seconds in a minute? You just do it on a whiteboard and go, look, you know, and I don't know the numbers, but it's basically 48 points a minute times 48 minutes in a game. I just proved to you Reggie Miller can score 2,300 points a game and average that for an NBA season. Like, prove me wrong.
Right.
Okay, well, he can't. But if we're looking at this, it's our shot clock. Like Reggie Miller knew I got 9 seconds to go and I got to make it happen. So when you have a shot clock like this, you can say, all right, for us to hit our goals, we need 11 and a half closings in escrow over the next 6 months because we can't count December and they got to close this year. So now we know we need 11 and a half closings. Okay, we have 13 scheduled for this month. Great. What do we need for next month? And really what makes it powerful is, you know, did Reggie Miller declare to the team and his fans, I'm going to get this done? You know, was he being held accountable? And so what we're doing, we're getting ready to do is recap our numbers, declare it, write it on the board. Are we still shooting for this goal? Is this still something I want to do? And will you hold me accountable? And how much is my shot clock? And, you know, you can't score 2,300 points a game, but you can sure score 8 and 9 seconds if you need to. And that's kind of what this tracking software can help us do. So we're pretty close, right? We've got 700, we got 400,000 of commission, 414, 320 that's pending. That puts that 730,000 that will close this year. So we need to pick up an extra 500,000, and we've only gone through 5 months. So it's doable. Like we are there. We just got to push it a little bit harder, right?
Excellent. Yeah, and Dave, I think that that it's important. You know, so we talked about this last November about setting these goals and the importance of tracking them and making the adjustments that you have to make throughout the year. Because it's so easy to write things down on paper. So every month, Sharon sends out a report that is, for me with my goals, right? So Sharon and I sit down in December, we put together our goals for the following year. And then Sharon beats me up for a while, makes me increase everything that and so then we go from there to now every month. That's part of my accountability meeting with Sharon, is where she says, okay, where are we at on this? Are we in track? Are we going to do better? Are we going to are we still playing catch up? If we're playing catch up, what does that mean? What does that need to look like in order to get into to still be in alignment with these goals? So and that's so important. And I think that so many people write these things down and they go to these classes and they go to all of these rooms, And, you know, everybody's like, okay, well, this is how we're going to break it down. But then there's either a failure of a plan to execute or adapt and adjust as necessary, right? Because I mean, you're close, right? You're close. So you don't need to make, that's one more deal, right? So, so if you can find one more deal in Gilbert or Chandler, you're back on track. But knowing that's important, you know. So
and then
it helps you put your budgets together for the year. It helps you tell your team what they should expect to make, and all of those things as well. So it's important all the way around.
Yeah,
well,
and then
oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, you have so many pieces into your business as well with how many are on your team. So, you know, getting those additional 1 or 2 transactions or whatever it is that you need to catch up on that goal could mean, do I bring additional person on, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, you know, as far as getting to that money figure, or expenses, reducing expenses or increasing something, you know?
Yep, 100%. And then we can really start looking at the individual metrics and the numbers. And we did lose some people. So we're going to talk about that too. So we're keeping our goals the same, but I have somebody coming on starting Friday of next week. So we're just really, once we get clear and we can start tracking things, it's interesting. I've got very great agents. They're really good, but when you're just busy doing things, it's so hard to know really how to evaluate that film and break it down, right? And so it's like, okay, how do we break down film and do it? But what I'm able to look at is my top agents who need to want to get there. One of them has to increase their met with rate. Like, you're setting a ton of appointments, but look at your met with rate. And that's really easy to break down and say, did you know that our team is averaging a 50% and you're averaging 30%? And there's nothing wrong with you personally, but are you sending out reminders? Are you texting them? Are you sending out a video? Like, what are you doing between appointment set and met? And we were able to really find out this is a simple fix. Like, I forget my appointments if it's not in my calendar, and so are your clients. And so just recognizing that when you track it, you can figure it out.
Dave, do you scoreboard that in your team meetings? Like how many meetings or appointments each person has gone on? Because that's something we do on our sales team. Everybody knows. And you're right, activity is going to lead to results. So if someone's got less activity, it's generally going to lead to less results. It just comes down to it.
Yeah, we track it individually and we look at it individually. And then we say, like, Sharon, you are doing great at your appointment set to met ratios. Share some things that you're doing. And that's where we can collaborate, and it's not coming from me all the time. And then one of our other agents, their offer acceptance rate was much lower. It's like, you're meeting with more people, you're showing more, but how are we not getting these into escrow? And then we're just able to collaborate. What are we doing on the actual offers? And so without tracking that, you just don't know why you're not moving the needle, why you're not hitting your goals versus, okay, let's keep doing what we're doing that works. But any tips to get these offers accepted that we're not doing, but at least we're aware of what we're doing and not doing. It's super helpful. Like, this is the best software system I've used to really create the sales funnel for them. You know, leads, appointments, show rate, offer rate, close rate, and everybody is different. Even though we're on the same team, we have different strengths and weaknesses throughout that process, right?
Well, what's great about this, though, Dave, is you can see those people that are beating, you know, we all remember our statistics class from college and all of our brains hurting afterwards. And, but the reality is that we find that numbers, when you have a big enough sample size, that numbers hold true, right? That those numbers are going to be there for a really good reason. So when you have somebody outperforming, then we can go to them and we can learn from them about what they're doing to be beating the curve, to be beating what our averages are. And we can now look to bring that average up to what they're at. We can all benefit from that, and vice versa. If we've got that person who's struggling, you know, I love this because that's one of the remarks I've made to so many people is that we don't have, like, I worked in retail for years and I managed a very big retail location in a mall, and I knew how many people walked through the door every day. There were door counters. So I knew how many people walked through the door every day. And I knew what the percentage of transactions per people, and what the average sales were. And I knew per person what they were ringing through, and was really helpful for my coaching. And in this business, it's difficult to have that, but a system like this really does an amazing job, Dave, of bringing all of that to the forefront, because then you can have those statistics to actually speak to. It's awesome.
Yeah. So we're not just saying what should we do? What do you think? And we rarely even see it. Like, honestly, when I say, where do you think your weakness is? A lot of agents don't even see it. Why would they? Because it just all blends in. We're all so busy right now. So I like where we're at. We're down. I mean, we lost an agent who was like, look, this is hard. This is hard right now. And I just don't want to do it. Right. Like, if you're a buyer's agent, there's serious fatigue of, I'm done doing this. So we're down an agent, and then we're down our showing partners. So we have 100 applicants that we've scrubbed, and we're down into the final stages, and we've got our candidates, but we had to replace our showing partners for the same reason. So it's one thing. And as Sharon knows, I'm a big Disney fan, right? So it's like, I can tell you about Disney, or I can take you to Disney. Two different things. And we have told our showing partners, this is going to be a grind. You are going to be putting 200 miles on your car a day, and it's going to be Saturday at 4. You get 4 new clients for tomorrow. And they're like, oh, this is great. No problem. Love it. Right. And one of the things I love about this model and that position, you get a trial by fire versus like, oh yeah, you're in real estate. Good luck. And let's see what happens in 6 months. You start running with somebody who's closed. I think Dorothy's had 25 closings so far for the year. You run with somebody like that, you're going to get pretty tired and figure out what real estate looks like in a hurry. And a lot of people say, okay, that's really not for me. The challenge of scheduling 48 open houses and not doing it, where we say that's your expectation, but I'm not going to pick up the phone and schedule it. And I'm not going to put the signs out for you. And so we have very clear performance reviews with them and said, look, we're not having enough open houses or this. And people are opting out of this program, which I think is amazing. It's amazing. We don't have to fire them. They just say, if this is what it takes to do real estate, pass. I'll do something else.
But Dave, that's okay. They can go waste somebody else's time or go do something else. I mean, we do the exact same thing here. I mean, we say, this being sales at Fidelity, it's not good for the faint at heart. I mean, if you're weak, slow, whatever, we are not a fit for you. We just aren't. We just don't move that way, and we don't want to. We all love how we move, and we have fun, and we do well. We're all successful. Same thing with your team, and you have that standard. And I love that you set that expectation from the very beginning. And that's what it should be. Yeah,
it's been really great to be able to base it just on that. This is what we're looking for. It's not personal. Has nothing to do with anything. And and I like it. But right now, we're short some people, and so my agents are feeling it, and they're like, how soon can we get somebody? It's like we're interviewing, we're getting them. But the great thing is too, that salary came back to us. It wasn't like, oh, what a waste of that salary. They immediately, because this position, it's not rocket science to open up a door. It's really not, as long as you have the right personality. So if you're watching this, you're like, oh, I don't want to go through that. Well, we didn't spend, our salary. I'm pretty open about it. It's between 35 and 40,000. So let's just say if it's 36, you're spending $3,000 a month. Well, if you were able to take 12 buyers on, and they showed homes, you got them in escrow, that salary was well spent, and you got it back, even though if you had to let people go, because it's not a tremendous onboarding. We're not talking about sit in classrooms for a month before we get you out there. We want you out that first weekend, opening doors. It's really not that complicated, but I still love the entry into real estate through that, because people are going to wash out or really figure out, this is what I want to do.
But Dave, the reason it's not that difficult though is because you have systems and processes in place to set them up for success as they walk in the door. Because I do think there's that misperception. Woo, real estate! I'm going to get my real estate license. It's super easy. I'm just going to sell a bunch of houses, gosh, and make $1 million. Well, you can sell a bunch of houses and you can make $1 million. However, it doesn't come overnight. That is structure. That's process, systems. Mindy, same thing with your team. I mean, you set people up walking in the door. They're not going to walk in and go, okay, well, you're not going to sit there and go, hey, just make a list of the people, that's all you're going to do. And, it's like, sorry, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. Here's where your hours are going to be spent. And this is what you're going to do. So, yeah. Mindy?
We just finished an annual review with our team. So we meet several times, obviously, throughout the year, but as a team, we get together twice in regards to kind of our planning and our review process. And so at the end of the year, we do an annual plan for the upcoming year. And then around this time of year, we'll get together and we'll do kind of a mid-year review. And it's, intentional celebrations, a lot of mindset conversation. But one of the things that we do is we kind of look at where we're at in regards to our goals. So a lot of what Dave is talking about today. And, Dave, my question for you would be, obviously this year looks a little different than I think everybody expected it to be. I mean, there's certainly some things that we anticipated coming down the line in regards to lower inventory. And so my question would be, as you look at those numbers, I know one of the conversations we had was, where do you expect the rest of your business to come from for this year? Because for some people, it looks very different than they anticipated it. And so I'm just curious if you guys have had those conversations about how things look different and how that's impacting their business.
Yeah, we have, we've got quite a few different lead sources and where we're at. And one that we've really, really liked, we're starting to question, like, is this really what we want moving forward? And I won't really dive into what it is, just in case of who's watching. But, it's evaluating that, looking backwards, going, how is this aligning with everything we want to do? Another thing, tracking this, like our commission, last year, we finished at 2.72 and our average check was 90. I had it up. It was like $9,800. We're down to 2.5 and 8,800. We're down like $900 a closing, and sale prices are up. So we don't get to control most of our commission. We do our best, right? But that really shows me how much that commission compression is happening. So where we want to get our leads from and how we want to get our leads really matters when you're dealing with this commission compression that we're seeing. I mean, that's we're just 5 months through the year and we're already down that much in commission. So is that trend going to continue? Somebody in the title world posted yesterday that Lennar is no longer paying a co-broke to buyer realtors, right? So watching that too, and how, looking at my P&L, I have agents saying, thank you for all these leads, but maybe I don't want all of these leads and the price tag that comes with it, right? So
I think that's really important, Dave, what you're talking about, right? Because it's important to define your business and what works for you and what your personal goals are and your team's goals are. Mindy, I know you do an amazing job. We've examined different lead sources together, and you're like, this doesn't really work for our style of the way we work with people, and that's okay, right? It has to be, because if you're going to do an amazing job of taking care of and building this business, it's taking care of your clients, it's taking care of the people who are dependent on you, your team, all of this stuff, and you have to have a strategy and a plan around it, and it has to be the business that works for you guys. So Dave, can I ask another question about the showing agents? Because I just think I love this idea. I was sharing with you before we went live about one of my other partners who has recently started working with it. He's not doing what you're doing as far as hiring people on as showing agents, but he is bringing them on and giving them a choice of either being paid per showing or being paid a percentage of the commission on a transaction. Can you kind of tell us what that looks like for people on your team, and as far as if somebody was interested in being a showing agent for you, what that would look like for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's plenty of different iterations that I've broken down. I'm in a big mastermind. We'll be up in Big Sky, Montana in about a week and a half, and people run different variations. And so I think it's important to define what you are developing as an ecosystem for your people, and what you want this role to provide and what it is. So for me, the one that I just resonated the most with was, let's let this be how agents enter our world, right? Because I have gone wide and broke right? I've gone 10 agents in a quarter, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, nobody produced, yet I pumped in all of these leads. So I'm a little bit more adverse to just adding people to add people. So when you can put this role out there and say, let's go deep through our current really good agents that are great at what they do, but they can go from 30 sales to 80 or 100 sales with this. I resonate more with that and want to run with those agents that are going to do a better job, especially in this market. Try being new in this market and getting a buyer under contract. Trying to, like, we might understand it, but you're going to get a internet lead or a Zillow lead to go 60,000 over with an escalation clause and no appraisal. Good luck being brand new in real estate and really being confident enough to get that done. That's challenging. So if I need to grow and scale, that lever is the right one to pull to have my agent scale us with more sales. And so we use it really as an internship. This is how you get into real estate. You're gonna get hit in the face by Mike Tyson and then figure out if you want to keep boxing or not. Like, you're gonna get knocked out. And that's great. People are gonna respond, and they're gonna continue on, or they're gonna quit. And either one is totally fine. But if we get that right person, so I like that model. So here's how we pay, like between 35 and 40,000, depending on your experience and how much we have to train you. And then there's no commission per closing. And then we want you to be able to go provide 8 closings that we don't give you. Open houses, Sphere, like, go tell the world you do real estate. Say, hey, I'm a new realtor, and see what shakes out. And when you close those 8 transactions, you're going to keep 15% of it. 35% is going to go to your senior agent, who's going to run the transaction, actually negotiate it, and then 50% will stay at the company. And that somebody who can do that's probably going to make $50,000 to $55,000 their first year in real estate, and not be 30,000 in the hole like I was 6 months into the business. I was probably 30 grand in the hole, right? Office, was leaving, new build, sales, had it, right? I'm like, when's a paycheck going to come? So it can sound unfair, like, gosh, you're keeping 50 and they're only keeping 15. Well, they're going to learn a lot, and they're going to get a paycheck right away. I think it's extremely fair. And that person is going to be ready to hit the ground running in a year. So we want a year of this, and then we want to move you next to the agent you are serving. And now you're going to be up and running. You know exactly what you need to do. I think your lifetime's earning is going to be far bigger going through that than if you don't. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's big, Dave, because that's what it's important. And we spent some time with Jeremy last week talking about opening businesses and expectations around getting into business, and that in the real estate business, there's this, for so many people, there's this expectation. Well, I got my license now, and now I'm going to go make all this money, and that it's not quite so easy, right? There's a bigger investment, and this is an opportunity for somebody to invest in their education in the business, right? And so while getting paid, right? This isn't like, when I went to college, I'm pretty sure I was going into debt, not getting a paycheck while I was there. And so this is an opportunity for somebody to make some money, enough to live on, while they are learning the business and learning how to be really proficient at it. And then to graduate to that next level with your team and with your organization, and still being able to leverage those tools.
Yep.
And I think, honestly, if this really is a career that you want to get into, and I talk about this often on Market of the Moment, I don't know when we decided that this was an easy career. I think the point of entry, is so low. The barrier to entry is so low. I think that gives off the expectation that since it's easy to get a license, that means it's easy to succeed in this career. But I think that you certainly can't underestimate what Dave mentioned, which is the current market conditions. I don't think this career is ever an easy career. You still have to educate yourself, and you still need practice, and you still need to hone your skills, and you still need to know all the resources available to you and build a network of people and be consistent in building your own business and get up every day and work. I mean, I think those things come into play no matter the market, but I don't think you can underestimate the market conditions that we're currently in. I talk with a lot of new agents. I do the market update here at the Market Center. We just brought a new agent onto our team. And it is very challenging to teach somebody not only the basics of real estate and kind of what it takes to, handle a transaction and the parties of the transaction, and here's the timelines, and all of those kinds of really basic components, while also helping them understand what the current market conditions are, and also giving them the confidence, like Dave mentioned, to help arm clients with what they need to be comfortable making very quick, very expensive decisions. And that is a whole lot for someone to learn in this market. And you've got to have a good handle on all of that to be successful. And so if you're not in a team environment and you're just starting to learn, and you know that you want this to be your career, this really is such a good opportunity to learn all the components about the business, if and until you get to the place you want to directly support clients. You may choose that you want to live in this space, and both of those things are fine. But I just think with the barrier to entry into the career being so low, people really are underestimating the value that you can get out of these types of programs.
Excellent. Dave, thank you so much for sharing today and your willingness to have all of these accountability partners, and we appreciate that. And I know
with everybody real fast. Let's see. All right, so we got the ADP employment report today. Obviously, employment's up all over the board. They're expecting our non-farm payrolls to be up tomorrow as well. So, which is great for the economy, but it's not so great for our interest rates. So we'll go to the chart. This is our mortgage-backed securities. You'll see what has happened over the last 6 months. So back in December and January into a little bit of February, we had some of the best rates we've ever seen in our industry. Once around February 15th hit, things started to go sideways, and partly because the country's opening back up again, which is another really good sign that our economy is moving forward. And I think some people kind of have some conspiracy theories and stuff, which is fine. But technically speaking, when it comes to the markets will read whatever people are investing in. So the mortgage-backed securities, obviously they came up, or down rather, and then you've got some mixed bag of tricks here. But roughly in May, we saw a really good turnaround in the rates, and now we're roughly in the low threes. You can see we've got some turmoil here. They are expecting, with the non-farm payrolls coming out tomorrow, that we're going to see a little bit of an increase in our interest rates, which means our mortgage-backed securities will come down this 50-day moving average. So that's the expectation across the board with the majority of all the people I follow. And so they're looking at slightly higher rates, but guys, we're still in the low threes.
Right.
Like
Perspective is important. Perspective is important.
Yes. Just like when I bought my first house, I was at 6.75, and I thought that was a great rate. So.
Oh, I was telling the story the other day how I was bragging to everybody when I bought a house and I was at 5.95, and I was just telling everybody in the world what an amazing deal I got because I was at 5.95, and at the time it was. And right now, a 3.5 is still a really good deal, nearly free money. So it's important to keep things in perspective. It
is, and rates are still good. There's still lots of opportunity out there. I can see maybe rates with the inflation, like inflation's been been a big majority of our move in mortgage-backed securities. So we'll see what the Fed does. I'm really curious about that. I think maybe during the summer we might hear some inkling of the Fed's scaling back their purchasing of bonds. So that'll be interesting. We'll see. But they're expecting some increase a little bit during the summer. But there's a lot of talk of things going back down in the fall. So it'll be a fun year, rest of the year.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Just one more quick question for you, Annette. So if say our average rate, so say we go into next week and we're between that 3 1/3 and 3 1/2 on what we'd be looking at interest rates. At what point, if somebody's sitting on on their mortgage right now and for whatever reason they haven't refied yet, at what point, at 4, at 4 1/2, at what point should they be looking at, hey, I should be getting this done before we go up any higher? I mean, like, if they're sitting at a 4, should they be getting refied? If they're sitting at 3.75, should they be getting refied?
I think that's a really great question. And I really feel like it's very individual, right? So you've got those people that are sitting at 4% that can refi down to 3.375. Maybe they're sitting on some equity and they can pay off higher rate bills, like higher rate credit cards. Maybe they have a home equity line of credit that they've just left out there. Now would be a really good time to do something like a cash out refinance and get that consolidation in place prior to. If they're moving, like, are they looking to buy and move up within the next year? Does that really make sense to refi at that point? So I think there's a lot of different avenues that I would ask a client if they were looking to refinance, just to make sure that it is the right thing. But in general, if you're roughly about 4 1/4 and you can get a 3 1/2, I say do it. If you're going to be in the house for at least 5 years, it makes sense. And most of the time, if you have mortgage insurance on your loan, you can take that off right now. With the 20% increase that we saw last year in equity, I would definitely look into it.
Excellent. So as we say very often on here, who you work with matters. And I think I'm stealing that from Mindy over here, but we know that it is important, and it's something that you should be, making sure you're having these kind of conversations with your lending professionals as you are looking at your situation on your home. So, Annette, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the update. We appreciate you. And now we're going to make the move over to Mindy, and let's talk about the market. And I'm hearing a little bit of inventory tick ups, which has been good news. Is that the case? Is the holiday weekend affecting everything? Is the fact that every day is now over 100 degrees affecting everything?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we typically do have some certain trends that we see, as we start to get into the summer months, and we're not really seeing all of those same trends this year. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One of the things, and I'm not really seeing a whole lot talked about this online or in any of the national news or even really the local news reports, but I think that we've got a lot of mobility between cities that we haven't really seen before. And I think that is affecting, I think there's internal migration patterns, if you will, that I think are really affecting our numbers. And I think that that's something that we're going to have to get used to before we can really determine how that's impacting our seasonality patterns. But over the last 10 weeks, we have seen a increase in the amount of inventory that we have. So if we just kind of compare where we are today, so active listings excluding those that are under contract, we're right at about 4,700. And if we look at last quarter, we were right at about 4,100. So that may not seem like a significant increase, but it really is. I mean, we're talking about 600 listings, and that varies, week to week, just depending on kind of what the closing status is of things. So that's getting close to a quarter, right, of the inventory that we have that we've seen increase over the last 10 weeks. So that is definitely a significant trend. And the majority of that is really coming from a change in the inventory levels, not a change in buyer demand. demand. So buyer demand is pretty steady across the board. We've seen some increases, we've seen some decreases, but for the most part, what happens on the buy side from a trending perspective is not really impacting what's happening in our market here. And so if we break it down and look at all of the different cities, we look at a city like Avondale, for example, which when we look at the chart of cities, the 17 major metropolitan cities, Avondale is quote unquote the hottest sellers market. What that means is it ranks the highest in the gap between what's available and how many people want to buy there. And what's interesting is that when you break it down city by city, we look at Avondale as just an example. While they top the charts in the hottest sellers market, they actually have one of the lowest demands in all of the 17 cities. And so what's interesting about that is your general consumer cannot really tell the difference between a market that's hot because of demand and a market that's hot because of inventory. But when we see something like that, it to me starts to alert some of the other expectations that we might have over the next 12 to 24 months. And so one of the things that I think is happening, and you see it in Avondale and you also see it in Maricopa, where I think these cities that trend with a typical lower price point, people have been able to get into those cities at a great entry level price point, and they've made a significant amount of money on their house over the last couple of years. And so we're seeing them be able to look at different parts of the valley. Whereas before COVID, typically if you bought on the west side or you lived on the west side, that's where your family was, that's where maybe your job was, you had all these other factors. And I think COVID has really changed that, and our low inventory has changed that. So I think you've got people who had maybe lived in Avondale, have been able to make quite a bit on their home, and are now looking at some of the new construction areas in other cities, whether it's on the west side or the east side, that they're able to get into based on availability and price point. So I think what's really interesting as we kind of dissect our inventory is we're sort of looking at it through the lens of how we've always looked at our inventory. And I think when we are in such a low inventory situation, it's really shaking up all of these different trends, and we're going to have to start looking at things a little bit differently. So that's one of the things we're noticing. We're noticing a lot of migration between the different cities just based on what actually is available. And as you migrate to those different cities, that changes the demand in each of the areas. Inventory levels are continuing to rise. Builders are doing their best. So, I think builders had planned to really gear up last year. We've seen decreasing inventory on the new construction side for 13 years. So this isn't anything new. I think last year before COVID hit was probably the first time we felt it, because I remember making a post at 10 or 11,000, listings on the market that, hey, there's really not a lot of listings out there. So I think that's when we really started to feel that tightness. But it's been something that's been building for several years. So I think as soon as we started to feel it, the builders had already planned for a couple of years to really gear up and give us what we needed last year. And then obviously that was hit between supply constraints, manufacturing plant constraints, general opening availability, general fears about the market. And so they didn't give us, I think, what they expected to give us last year. So if we look at our building permits for this year, which we just got them through the end of April, we've actually seen 40% more single family permits than we did in 2020. So that's a great sign. Because the only way out of this, if you will, is going to be an influx in inventory. And so that's got to come from these builders. And we're lucky to still have some space to do that. So they're not building anywhere, to the levels that they did in 99, 03, 04, 05, or even 06. But they have pulled nearly 13,000 permits across Maricopa and Pinal counties, which is the 6th highest we've ever seen, and certainly a significant increase over last year. So I think between the increase of the new construction options throughout the valley, I think the openness of people to migrate between the cities just based on what there is availability-wise, I think that we will continue to see this slow decline, if you will, or pulling out of this seller's market across the valley. I think you probably won't feel it in 2021, You may feel it, maybe the first half of next year. I don't think you're going to see prices fall. I don't think anyone who's looking at the numbers looking at prices falling. If they are expected any type of a change, obviously we've got to first get to a flatness. And, the way that the numbers are falling right now is they're falling at a fairly slow pace, which is great because it's very healthy. We rose at a much faster pace than we're falling. So I think that is something that should help buyers who are unsure about getting their foot in the market. Now is the time to do it. The sense of urgency is definitely on the buy side. The sell side is more so the means to be able to make that purchase. But a slow fall is exactly what we would expect to see. And for our sellers who are trying to time, maybe they don't have to buy again. They've got a rental property that they're selling. The question just becomes, what do you want to do with the money that you get from that? And does where you're depositing the money necessitate any sense of urgency, right? So if you're going to take the money out and put it into new real estate, there's probably a sense of urgency into getting that deposited into the new real estate. If you're going to take it out and pay something off, or you're going to take it out and build a savings fund or whatever else you might do to it, you may have some room in which you want to kind of time what that sale looks like. So it's very individualized discussion. But as a whole, 10 weeks of a continued trend of an increase in inventory and a flattening or a less fluctuation of demand, that is something to pay attention to for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, and Sharon, thank you. I know you got to go, and we're going to wrap up here without Sharon, but
thanks, guys. Okay. Bye. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
So and Mindy, I think that it's so important to keep an eye on the fact that just because when we start talking about rising inventory, we are not talking about anything wrong with our market or anything.
No, it's very healthy.
Right. It's amazing. So as people hear us say this, I think it's important that they keep that in mind, that this is still a very strong, like crazy strong market that, exceeds what most people were expecting 5 years ago, 4 years ago, however that is. So thank you for the update. I appreciate it. And it's interesting because next week we're going to be talking about moving some of that money around and what that looks like. We're going to have Rick Whitstock from IPIC's 1031 Exchange on, and then Dr. Harold Wong, who talks about wealth management around real estate as well. So yes.
I was just going to say, if that all sounds kind of like gibberish, you're not sure what any of that is, I would definitely tune in next week, because 1031 Exchange is a very important part of the conversation right now. We have helped many clients who were not quite sure what that was or what to do with it take advantage of that. I think last week we put 4 contracts under contract that were all 1031 exchange. And so I think that's a real big piece of the puzzle right now. And that's something that's going to continue. So if you're not familiar with that, either as a consumer or as someone in the real estate industry, I think it's very important that you watch that.
Yeah, thank you, Mindy. Yeah, I agree. I think that the more I've learned the time in this business, the more I see the value in these things. So definitely check us out next week. So Mindy, thank you so much for the update. Thank you for being part of us each week. And I want to talk a little bit before we wrap up about your event tomorrow. Is there still space available for the Women in Leadership Breakfast?
Yeah, so the beauty of this event, we are definitely full, but the beauty of this event is that they are opening especially for us. And so if you're watching this, we want to make sure that you are able to get in. So if you are interested in coming tomorrow, we are doing our Women in Leadership Breakfast event. It is our 3rd in the series that we've done this year. We do them about every quarter. It's for women in business across all sectors. So obviously, if you're in real estate, we would love to see you out there. It's also for anyone who is running, driving, planning to run a business, a home schedule, anything where you could benefit from getting, an hour and a half to be around like-minded, hardworking, gritty women. We've got a great speaker coming in, Liz Illig. She runs a consulting business. She'll be talking about owning your time, saying yes to yourself, And I think you're going to leave with some really valuable tools for the second half, no matter, again, what your goal is. And obviously a wonderful breakfast from the folks over at Parlay Kitchen and Cocktails in Chandler. So we will absolutely make space for anyone who's watching this today who wants to be able to come. So email the link on the screen, and we'll definitely get you RSVP'd right away.
Excellent. Yeah, and Mindy, thank you for letting me come as well. So so I look forward to being there tomorrow. So okay, well, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time and all the great information that everybody has brought. Excited to do this each week with you guys. Dave, thank you for letting us all be your accountability partner. Congratulations on your successes so far this year. And obviously, just continuing to build on it and adapt to the market as appropriate. So
I appreciate that, and I'm open to feedback from all of you, what I could be doing better. So just send it my way. I'm open to it.
Yeah, great. And then Annette, thank you so much for stepping in. We appreciate you, and we will see everybody back here next week. Thank you very much. Have a great week. Looking forward to our time next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.